As South Africans gear up for voter registration weekend on the 18th and 19th of this month, the IEC says it's all systems go. Millions of eligible voters at more than 23,000 voting stations nationwide are expected to turn out. The Commission says venues and personnel are in place for the coming weekend. To amplify awareness and participation, the IEC has rolled out a media campaign titled Your Democracy, Own It. Let's speak to the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer, Mawethu Mosery now. Thank you for making time for us, sir. How ready are you as the IEC for voter registration weekend next week?
Good afternoon, Clement, and good afternoon to your viewers. In terms of logistics, we are ready. What we are focusing on now is rallying South Africans, encouraging our citizens to go to the voting stations next weekend, 18 and 19. And also we're doing this work at the backdrop of the recent census figures, where there was a very clear indication that our eligible population to vote has increased, and we are indeed targeting all of those youngsters to come and register this weekend. And for those who have registered before, to check whether their particulars, their details on the voters' roll are indeed correct to their current address of stay at the moment, or they are correct in terms of the voting station where they vote, knowingly that for this national and provincial election, the provision we had previously is no longer there, so people have to definitely vote where they are registered. If they intend to vote elsewhere, they would need to do an application beforehand and be approved for that, Clement.
Oh, so for those that are on the voters' roll and who need to update certain information, do they need to do that application first, or they can just rock up at any voting station and make the necessary changes?
Clement, we prefer that voters get used to the venue where they will also vote, that they actually go to that venue. But if for any reason you are unable to be at that venue, certainly with the technology that we have now deployed at the voting stations, it is possible to capture your correct address, and the machine will locate you in your correct voting station. But more convenient for some of the voters is to actually go onto our online platform and update their particulars there on online voter registration platform. Those are the two options that are available to them, which we encourage them to go and utilize. If not, go to the voting station on the 18th and 19th. Obviously, we are keen to increase citizen participation in this election, hence our message saying it's your democracy, you must own it.
Mm-hmm. Young people are always the focus area because it's mostly them who are eligible but often don't show up. How are you getting them to come and register?
We've confirmed the question you are asking, Clement, through our research and various surveys that we've done together with the HSRC, and particularly what could be the reasons for participation or non-participation. And to a large extent with young people, they are saying to us, we do not know, we do not have sufficient information. Make it available in the places where we are, in the things that we like to do, and consequently our response has been to carry a message that resonates with young people. Secondly, we've gone to the platforms where you will find young people. We're doing a lot of work digitally. But our research also directed us that television and radio are still the key platforms for information like this of national responsibility and civic responsibility. So we are focusing on young people. We've been working with tertiary institutions, with high schools where you find 17-year-olds upwards, to ensure that we reach all of those young people who are eligible to vote. And we've gone into the industries and are partnering with businesses who are sharing information and encouraging young South Africans to go and register.
Yeah. So we're looking at over 23,000 voting stations nationwide. Is that the only way people can register at the stations, or can they do so online as well? So in other words, what other platforms are available for particularly young people to put their names down to vote next year?
Obviously, the online platform is the most popular with young people. We've seen over 1 million of them use it since our campaign around it in February this year. There's been an increasing traffic of young people on the online platform. Obviously, it relates to those who have access to wireless and data. But for those who prefer to go to the voting station, they must go to the voting station on the 18th and 19th. And we also encourage that voters and citizens can always visit the offices of the Electoral Commission in the various municipalities across the country to go and register there. Our officials are always ready to welcome them. But in some communities where there have been boundary changes, we've actually visited homes in those communities, and we were able to register them. And going into the December vacation and probably January vacation, we'll continue with those programs. Lastly, the voting station is still the most convenient and the easiest for all our communities in the country. Hence, we are opening the voting stations next week, Clement.
Okay. You have been rolling out a media campaign, Your Democracy, Own It. You made reference to it earlier as well. It's specifically targeted at these young South Africans, aiming to also celebrate the fruits of democracy by showcasing the real-life experiences from the diverse corners of the country. How effective has that been from your preliminary assessment, the effectiveness of this campaign?
It's still in the early stages of the campaign, Clement, so there isn't sufficient data for us to create a meaningful trend. But the initial reactions were welcoming, and more so the message itself, saying each one of us as citizens, we must take responsibility. It's not only about protesting, about complaining, about withdrawing from participation in our democracy, in our electoral process that will help us. It is actually us being there, being active participants in democracy that we will make a difference. It's not the withdrawal. And we are hoping that when most of us as citizens start to take responsibility, own this democracy, we will turn this tide of low voter turnout, of apathy, of disillusionment with the democratic environment that we have, the governance, the state that we have as South Africans. So the message so far has received positive response, and we hope that it will continue to make an impact with young people. But one of the things we've done is to go to WhatsApp and create chatbots for young people to continuously engage us in the value of democracy, in the value of participating in politics of the country and being an active participant. And all of those are intended to reach out to young people, but they must also reach out to young adults, those in employment and those unemployed, but go further to reach out on all our vulnerable sectors in the country and just say we all have a responsibility in our democracy and we must participate.
Yeah. And I imagine it's not obviously going to take the IEC on its own to get these young people to come out and vote. You need the help of political parties as well. And some of them are already doing that work. Action SA, as we've been reporting, and the Democratic Alliance, also starting off their campaigns.